You're watching a Grounded Astro production with your favorite astrologer, Lady V. Hey baby girl, thank you so much for trusting me to do this reading for you guys. When you get to the end of the video, please give me your most honest, detailed feedback so I can keep honing my skills. I'm so excited for this next step in your life journey. You are seriously going to be the most loving, understanding, supportive mom, I swear. Please let me know if there's anything I can do for you through this, okay? I know I'm far away, so I can't come see you, and this whole inflation bullshit has hit us harder than most, so I can't spoil you and baby, but for what I can provide to you, I will give it everything I've got. So anyway, okay, let's jump right in. You said that you wanted to go over your ability to be partners with David and how you guys can parent together. I feel like you're asking all the perfect questions as you transition into motherhood, so you're honestly already off to a great start. In astrology, there are a few things we want to look at when considering partnership between two people. There are two main types of relationship charts that I work with, and they're called the synastry chart and the composite chart. Synastry charts just speak to how you work together on a day-to-day basis. And the composite chart is like the natal chart of your relationship, like the destiny, the point, the whole core purpose of your relationship. You can think of it like this. If your relationship was a person, the composite chart would essentially be like its birth chart. So we just take the middle points between the placements on your chart and the placements on your partner's chart, and then all of the midpoints make up the composite chart. So hopefully that makes sense and I didn't completely just lose you. But yeah, now I won't be able to dive into everything that I'd like to in this reading, because as we peel back any chart, there's always 100 more layers to get through. And I don't want this video to be several hours long. I'll try to keep it basic and as helpful as possible for you guys. I won't dive too far into the composite chart this time around, since that relates more to, like I said, the purpose and the trajectory of your relationship as a whole. But I will be mentioning components of your composite chart as it relates to the subject at hand. But I'm going to focus mainly on your synastry just because it specifically speaks to getting along day to day as a team. And that seems to be the most important thing you're wanting answers for right now. So I'm going to dissect both of your seventh houses in the synastry chart. And I'll quickly go over your sun-moon interactions because that's where ego and emotions collide. And I want to look at your Mercury interactions as well, because that focuses mainly on everyday communication. I would love to dive into your Venus and Mars placements and interactions too, which is like where love and sex collide, you know? Venus is your love language and what you value among so many other things. And Mars is sex, leadership, aggression, among so many other things. And these are so important to take into consideration with the partnership. But since there's just so much to unpack in looking at those, I'm constricted for time. But if you'd like more information, I'll leave my Google form in the description box below, so you can order another reading. I try to keep these as short and concise as I can so they're not just too overwhelming. So first things first, let's take a look at your seventh houses on the synastry wheel. The synastry wheel is just an overlay of your chart on top of David's chart. And you can see where and how both of your planets, luminaries, and other astral items fall into each other's charts. When people make contact in each other's charts, there's like a spark that the planet person gives to the house person. Both people feel the energy exchange, but the house person feels it much more intensely. I'll explain this more in detail as we go, so don't worry if you're really confused. Okay, so the seventh house of partnerships rules all types of partnerships, from romantic relationships to marriage to business partnerships and contracts to how we share with each other. Because keep in mind, the seventh house is ruled by Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So think the balance and fairness side of Venus. Now, this is the house of who we value. Venus rules the second house of Taurus and this house, the seventh house of Libra. It represents all of these things here. So go ahead and pause the video to read through this if you need to. So yeah, back to your charts. Libra practically lives under the mantra of everyone is my friend. Neither of you have planets in your seventh houses, which isn't inherently a bad thing. Empty houses just means there's like a clean slate there. You're starting from scratch, but with all of that freedom comes lack of direction. So yes, it's nice to not have baggage in those areas of life, but sometimes a little nudge in the right direction can be a good thing. So when it comes to the seventh house, we just need to learn to be sensitive with each other. You guys don't seem to be aspected negatively in your seventh houses. Your seventh house is ruled by Taurus, and David's seventh house is ruled by Gemini. So in terms of partnerships, you approach in a Taurus kind of way. So a little bit stubborn, very loyal, solid, things of the Taurus nature. And David approaches things of the seventh house like a Gemini. So sometimes can be a little bit flighty, can be unpredictable, there's a lot of variety when it comes to Gemini energy. So, and it's air and earth coming together. So sometimes you guys might feel like you don't always see eye to eye on issues of long-term partnership, but with so many other incredible positions that we've already mentioned and will mention in this reading, you're solid. You are darn near, I would even say maybe meant for each other. And I hate saying that because it's so dorky and cheesy, but honestly, you guys have a crazy deep connection. So, right, now on to the sun. So the sun rules the fifth house of Leo, and it represents everything that you see listed here. So this is just my little cheat sheet, if you will. This isn't an all-inclusive list, but it gets the job done. So your Cancer sun in your birth chart is aspected pretty easily, meaning the position in your chart and how your sun gets along with everything else in your chart. It's generally favorable. There are a couple of oppositions, but things look pretty good to me. David's Sagittarius sun is aspected pretty positively as well in his birth chart. So this is good because it's basically two healthy egos coming together before we even touch the synastry chart. So I like that we're starting off strong. Your Cancer sun falls into David's seventh house of partnerships and commitment. And this is so sweet to see because wherever someone's sun falls into their partner's house is where the sun person lights up the house person's life. So we like to see the sun coming into a partner's second, fifth, seventh, or 11th house. These are typically the best partnership positions. So we just went over the purpose and function of the seventh house, and you come in and brighten things up there for David. Your warmth and personality and spirit are like pieces to his puzzle that he felt like were missing without you. You feel more like your true selves when you're physically together with each other than you do when you're apart. So be careful to not lose yourself in trying to find where you fit in David's life. I don't know how much about astrology that you know, but each luminary and planet have houses wherein they thrive and other houses where they really struggle. In general, the sun doesn't like being in the seventh house, whether it's in a synastry chart or I guess that's not necessarily true, but at least for a natal chart, it's not good to have the sun in the seventh house because, we're going over the synastry chart, right? So obviously that's not a birth chart, but there's still some of that residual energy here. So like I personally have my sun in my seventh house, and I can be really susceptible to losing myself in partnerships, like losing my identity. I'm one of those people that just loves so hard and supports people so hard that I find myself running down this path only to turn around and realize I left my own self miles behind. So that would be my little tidbit here. Yes, he's extremely important to you, but just don't lose yourself in fulfilling what he has always been missing and wanting in a partner. You are his ideal long-term partner. You're both really comfortable in each other's presence. And just make sure to keep your needs close and fulfilled, because this position can indicate a little bit of codependency. So when you said that you felt like you guys get through things pretty well together, this position has something to do with that. So David's sun falls into your second house of money, possessions, the five senses, tangible assets that we get from family, daily routines, what we value. Remember, seventh house is who we value. Second house is priorities, habits, work ethic, finances. And having David's sun fall into your house here, this is great because if you remember, Venus rules both the second and the seventh houses. And like I mentioned earlier, we love to see partners' suns falling into second, fifth, seventh, and 11th houses. So this is a really sweet pairing here. Both your sun and David's sun fall into each other's houses of sweetness, things of Venus, how we want to give and receive love. So David lights up the second house for you, and this tends to indicate that you feel really respected by him and valued by him. You feel his support and warmth and strength in matters of the second house. But just like with everything else, the flip side of this is if David's sun becomes debilitated, or whenever he's struggling with ego issues, he could do a lot of damage to your self-esteem. The second house is a very sensitive place for each person. We look at the first 6 houses as very personal houses, and 7 through 12 are houses of the collective. So it's like our place within the world in all the different areas of what the houses 7 through 12 represent. So the first house is the very core of how you see yourself, right? That's your ego. And the second house is just one house removed. So it's still extremely personal. It's what we base our value on. And having David's sun here indicates that you heavily support him. When you have physical income coming in, you're supporting the both of you. David expresses his love for you by spoiling you in Venusian things. Just be careful that you don't associate your value with those gifts that he gives you, because that can be such an easy thing to fall into. And then when hard financial times come, and we got to tighten those purse strings, it can feel like part of your value has dwindled. And it's like, but where has all that spoiling gone? Since it stands to reason that the second house person is the one who usually physically pays the bills, whether they earn the money to pay the bills themselves or the sun person is the one earning the money, this interaction indicates that sometimes you can end up feeling a bit used in materialistic things. Now, you have a Leo Mercury, so I'm sure you have your own fiery way of speaking up for yourself if you start to feel used. So I probably don't need to give you any advice there, but I did notice that in your natal chart, your Mercury is a decent number of degrees away from your sun. The distance from sun to Mercury in someone's chart indicates how quick of a speaker that they are. So the distance here seems to indicate that you take your time formulating thoughts from your brain until they come out of your mouth. So just keep an eye on, if you're ever biting your tongue and not speaking up when you feel used. We'll go over Mercury a bit more later on in the video. But so there's a lot of physical attraction here with David's sun in your second house, which is also really positive to see. The second house is the house of Taurus, so things based in the physical world. Sex is more of an 8th house Pluto Mars type of thing, but as far as attraction and sensuality is concerned, this is a really stimulating interaction between the two of you here. And it points to even the house person using a lot of lingerie and stuff like that to express sensuality. And I think I'm pretty confident in saying I know that to be true in my real world experience with you. And girl, I am here for it. Hello, MILF. The way that your egos interact with each other is really promising because it indicates that you both just really highly value each other and how each other shines. There's not a lot of ego clash and competition where everyone's trying to lead. You have a good balance here, and that's going to come in so much handy when you have that sweet, sweet baby. Next up, we have the moon. The moon rules the 4th house of Cancer, and it represents everything that you see listed here. Again, you can pause the video to read through the list. Now, I don't have time to dive too far into each of your natal moons, but I did take a quick peek at them. And one of the major things I noticed right away is that your Leo moon is squaring your Scorpio ascendant. Usually when things come into negative contact with the ascendant, such as the square aspect, it means that we can sometimes, or in some cases, a lot of the time, hide that part of ourselves, whatever is coming into contact with the ascendant. So in this case, your moon, your emotions and everything that we just went over is coming into conflict with how you come across to the world. You know, your outer personification, your outer image that people see, right? The rising is the first thing that people notice in us. Think about it like this. If you were a house, your rising sign would be the yard, the outside of your house, what, you know, the color of the paint, what it looks like, how is it upkept. People drive by, walk by, and they see the outside. They judge it positively or negatively, but they don't really get to know what the house is like on the inside. So then they just happily go on their way, right? Your sun would be like your living room inside your house. That's where people can come, hang out, warmly gather together, and then go on their separate ways. It's kind of surface level. Parties are great, but usually people bring their best selves to parties, not necessarily always their true selves. So this isn't always our most genuine expression. And finally, the moon is like the bedroom. Not a lot of people are entrusted with getting to experience that intimate, deep, private part of you. As for David's natal moon, it positively aspects his communication, which is his Mercury, and it positively aspects his luck, fortune, and expansion, which is Jupiter. These can be really good aspects. Just always keep in mind that easy doesn't always mean inherently good. You know, easy aspects and hard aspects, there's only the two, and there's varying degrees of easiness or hardness, but that doesn't always mean that that's a fantastic thing all the time, always positive, let's go. You know, and hard aspects don't always inherently mean negative. When planets and other things aspect each other easily, there's just a flowing energy where things just happen. But this isn't always positive because, like, if someone finds it easy to access their asshole energy, that's not exactly a good thing, you know what I mean? So easy aspects only signify an easy flowing energy. Hard aspects may not make day-to-day life simple, but there's so much room for growth here that it ends up making you even stronger than maybe you'd have been with an easier aspect. Just a little food for thought. On the synastry chart, your moon falls into David's 8th house. So your deepest, innermost feelings, your habitual emotional drive is coming into contact with David's house of intensity, control, difficulty, sex, taxes, crisis, death, really deep desires and longing, mystery, Plutonian things. So when someone's most vulnerable part of themselves is coming into someone else's house of darkness and depth, this tends to indicate a very serious, deep pairing. There is so much passion here. David provokes you to sometimes react in irrational ways because your emotions are connecting to where he's hidden from everyone else. You love that he saves that bit of himself just for you because he doesn't trust it with anyone else. He brings up a lot of unconscious issues for you, and it forces you to dive into your own unexpressed darkness. You find healing in his darkness, as weird as that may sound. You can't just hide from him. You can both hide from society, but you cannot hide from each other. And I love this. It has this like deep, sexy, almost gothic kind of energy to it. Things about you that judgmental people in like general society would say, that's not okay. But when you're with each other, you can just let it all hang out because you accept and understand each other at that core level. So there's almost a feeling of destiny that you feel in your relationship with him. Even with this, you guys can share a really intense trauma bond and maybe even a shared fear of losing this really deep passion. Sex can bring you guys together. It looks like, judging from your chart, that it's a really intense connection there. So David's moon falls into your 5th house of romance, love, creativity, children, hobbies, joy, fun and games, risk, performing, drama, attention that you give and receive. Remember, this is the house of Leo and the sun. So David's emotional nature is colliding with your romantic, fun nature. This is a really fun dating type of energy. The 5th house is not a serious house. It can be flighty in the sense that it's not focused on, our own undoing or matters of the world as a whole or deep emotional things. It's just here for a good time. This also indicates that David sees you as a really fun person to be around. He likes tagging along with you when you go out to do things. And this is so sweet because paired with the other much more serious and deep things in your chart, this placement covers the fun and goofy side of things where you guys can just be good friends and have that fun, good-naturedness when you're together. Your moon signs trine each other, so there's that really easy flowing energy again. You can provoke each other very simply, but how you provoke each other is completely up to you. But in general, this is usually a really good sign. You both have fire moons, so you can have some intense emotional interactions. Just make sure to cool off before diving into the more serious issues, because having both of your Mercuries in fire signs tends to indicate that you can let your mouths fly. How we fight is a Mars-related topic, but honestly, I was curious, so I took a peek. And without going too deeply into it, your Mars signs are literally right on top of each other in your synastry chart, and they're both fire signs as well. So there is an overload of heat between you guys. So overall, your moons being in such a loving place and synchronicity with each other indicates that you guys can be really sensitive toward each other in things that matter. Disagreements are totally normal, but you guys are able to come back together and help heal each other. You both desperately want to keep things harmonious and even flowing, so resist the urge to really jab each other when you're angry. And last but not least, we have Mercury. Mercury rules the 3rd house of Gemini and the 6th house of Virgo. It represents everything that you see listed here. So as you can see, it's a lot more than just communication. And just like I mentioned earlier, how close a person's Sun and Mercury are together speaks to how quickly thoughts formulate into words. So in Greek mythology, Mercury was the trickster. He's depicted with those little wings on his feet because he carried word from one place to another really quickly. He was also a little gossip. He loved to gossip, among other things. I find it really fun to learn about the Greek mythology that shaped a lot of what we know about astrology today. I highly recommend it because it can shed light on the archetypal energy of all the signs. So anyway, we've come to know Mercury to guide and represent communication for the most part, Your Mercury falls into David's 8th house of mystery and deep things like we went over earlier. So you love to talk to him about things that he doesn't usually entrust to anyone else. You guys have such a deep connection in so many places in your chart that this one goes right along with the narrative. David has probably opened up to you about some secrets that he's always kept. But like we also talked about, Mercury can be a trickster. So girl, you better be keeping them secrets. David's Sun and Mercury are really close to each other, so he may be really quick-witted. I don't know if he necessarily talks a lot because his Mercury is in his 12th house, so I'm not sure on that. He may not talk a lot, but when he does, it's quick. And so he's got those funny little bits ready in his arsenal to make people laugh because, that's what Sag Suns love and live to do, entertain and smile and laugh. Both his Sun and Mercury are in the 12th house, which is the house where self-undoing can take place. It's the house of hidden things, completion, the collective unconscious, and stuff like that. So he may see himself as a mystery sometimes. And being a Sag Sun, they're all about go, go, go energy. And that's why they're the centaur with the arrow. They can run fast. Some run metaphorically and others physically. And they aim far. So he can maybe feel directionless sometimes, having the Sun in the house of hidden things. And he'll really need to rely on your Cancer healing energy during that uncertainty. Just don't let him stay there. Keep pushing him forward, no matter how good it feels to be his safe haven. So David's Mercury falls into your 2nd house right along with his Sun. So a lot of the energy that we went over earlier with the Sun in the 2nd house, a lot of it rings true with Mercury as well, just in the sense of what Mercury rules. So this position can indicate that the Mercury person can take on a sort of secretarial role, which would be David, in supporting your financial endeavors. So that could be scheduling appointments for you, or helping you with your social media accounts, or, stuff like that. So just as a way to show you how valuable that you are. And he seems to be extremely affirming in how he communicates to you about how valuable you are to him. So your Mercuries trine each other, which indicates a really easygoing communication. You love talking to each other about anything and everything, and you find each other's thoughts and words really interesting. Communication is really important in a partnership and insurmountable in parenting, because if we can only dance on the surface of what we're all about, what is even the point? If we can't talk about and reason through the tougher parts of life where we may not see eye to eye immediately, we're not going to make it very far in a partnership. And parenting is going to be a day-to-day struggle if we can't talk to each other and approach each other in a gentle way and a respectful way. And it looks like you guys have got, the ego respect. You've got the emotional deep connections. You've got the fun part figured out. The Mars, I wouldn't say it worries me, but the Mars definitely makes me perk my ears up a tiny bit. But that's nothing that you can't get through together as a couple when you really care about somebody. You are not your natal chart. You get to choose the trajectory of your life. So don't feel limited by these things or trapped by them. This is all just in good fun. And I just find it fascinating. And oh my gosh, girls, someday you should order a career reading for me, because look at that 10th house of yours. So many planets there, so much going on. I would love to dive into all of that. The 10th house is the house of career, long-term goals, public reputation, and stuff like that. It's also one of the houses of fame. So that's really interesting. Anyway, thank you again so much for letting me do this for you. I genuinely hope that it provided at least some clarity or insight that you guys may not have had before. Let me know if I was way off too, like, wow, okay, yeah, this dumb girl doesn't know shit. It all helps me further perfect my skills. So if you liked it, please make sure to share my Google form link to anyone that you may know that might be interested in getting a reading done. It's just a basic order form. And it helps me be a lot more organized, because I've been taking requests through messages and texts and stuff like that. And it's just become crazy. So I just decided to put it all in one place. My Virgo ascendant was just so pleased. It's just organization. It's our favorite. So anyways, yeah, share it like crazy if you enjoyed your reading. And I really have so much fun doing these. So anyways, I love you to pieces, and I'll catch you later, dollface.